And a market that has clearly made it clear what it thought of that big speech by Kevin Warsh earlier today.
I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder, Romaine.
Yeah.
But the bond market reaction.
Yeah.
Especially at the front end. 2-year yields up 12 basis points right now.
Yeah.
A straight move higher, basically starting at 10 a.m.
Yeah, you got to throw it out there. And you talk about that big jump that you're seeing on the short end of the curve. There's no activity really on the long end of the curve. The 30-year yield up about 2 basis points. And that's the story, a flattening of the yield curve and anticipation that the next move by the Fed will be to hike rates, and probably sooner than later.
And there is a read-through into the equity market. When you look at the Russell 2000, those small caps, those interest rate sensitive stocks are selling off the most today by a pretty big divergence than the S&P 500.
Yeah, the one thing I wanted to point it out, which we haven't actually spoken about so far, but the Bloomberg Dollar Spot Index, that's up by about 0.3% right now. So we're watching the dollar closely, too, after all this news we've had today.
Yeah, and particularly we have so much talk about that debasement trade coming out of Treasury Secretary Besson and the moves that he started telegraphing about 2 weeks ago, that bid into gold, that drop in the dollar being reversed for today. Of course, a lot of questions right now as a lot of people sort of, I guess, maybe depart for the next week or so until after the Labor Day holiday and sort of what that means. Remember, if you have your calendar out, you want to mark down September 16th. That is the next Fed decision day. October 28th is the next one after that. Election day is November 3rd here in the U.S., and then the final Fed meeting on December 9th of this year. We have red across the screen here in the U.S. for U.S. equity markets, so the losses are relatively fractional. The Dow Jones Industrial Average only down 10 points. We'll just basically call it unchanged. The S&P down 20 or 0.25%. The NASDAQ down 139 points or 0.5%. The NASDAQ 100 down 0.7%. And the Russell 2000 taking the biggest brunt of today's sell-off, down about 1.4%.
Romaine, you're not leaving us next week, are you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're gone?
Who allowed that?
Sorry.
I don't know.
It's been great working here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see who shows up on Monday. As far as the S&P 500 looks today, we did see 230 stocks move higher. We did see 272 stocks move lower.
And if you take a look at the IMAP, it's a different story than yesterday. Yesterday, remember, there was only one sector in the green, and it was tech. More of a mixed bag today, though. What's leading the way? Consumer discretionary, communication services, energy, staples. And what is the laggard? It's IT. Some days you're up, some days you are down. And it's all after that Fed meeting.
All right, well, let's get to some of the stocks that moved higher today. Gainers, how about that? Look at this. We got Gap higher today by close to 13%. Shares jumped after the company named Michael Francis to head up its Old Navy brand. Profit, too, came out, outpaced estimates. It offset a sales decline at Old Navy and lower sales guidance. Francis will take over as CEO of Old Navy on November 2nd, and the current CEO will transition to an advisory role. It does follow a sales decline last quarter at Old Navy, and the company trimmed the upper range of its outlook for 2026 net sales. Still, investors cheering the overall results from Gap, higher today by 13%. Also, shares of Affirm, the buy now, pay later fintech company, they were higher today by as much as 17% earlier in the session. A steady move lower, still finishing the day in the green, up 0.4%. The company did hit an intraday high going back to September of 2025, so the highest intraday since then, close to a year. This after the company forecast revenue for the first quarter that beat the average analyst estimate. We did speak with Max Levchin, the company's CEO, and he said that American consumers, at least the consumers that he views, he calls them the Affirm consumers, he says they are healthy right now. And finally, taking a look at some of those sports betting companies. DraftKings and Flutter shares were higher today. Shares of DraftKings up by 4.3%. We did see them move higher midday after New York, after Kalshi faced a setback in a U.S. appeals court. Remember, Kalshi, the prediction market, you can do a lot of what you do when it comes to sports betting on Kalshi, but it's not considered sports betting, at least by legal entities, the CFTC.
It's predicting, right? That's different.
Excuse me?
It's predicting. That's different,
it's predicting.
Right? Yeah.
At least that's what the CFTC says. Yeah. So this is something that is not going away anytime soon. And Kalshi faces this challenge on a, state by state basis.
Yeah.
But this is the latest setback for the company. Flutter shares higher today by 7.1%. These sports books have been pretty beat up, though, as people have moved away from traditional sports books and gone instead to rivals like Polymarket and Kalshi.
All right, I want to get to the decliners since we get on the upside. We want to start with PayPal. Their share down about 12%. And here's the reason why. Sources are saying there's a group from Advent, Stripe. They're not going along with their $50 billion pursuit of the company. So that was a big blow. That was not good news for the company. It would have actually ranked as one of the biggest ever leveraged buyouts if it had gone through. But PayPal, early mover in digital payments, right? But the thing is, a struggling modernization in its payment technologies have been a real problem for the company. Rivals, you have Apple, you have Alphabet. They've kind of seized the market share. And then you have the company. They ousted their CEO earlier this year. They have a new CEO in the spot. And he's saying specific financial goals for the company. He wants to change how it reports earnings, also how they assign each line of business specific revenue target. But the company shares, down about 12%. Another downer, and this was on the upside yesterday. Yeah, we're talking about NVIDIA. Their shares also are down lower. What a difference a day makes. The leader in AI chips coming off a huge rally. This is when it projected sales growth of about 70% for the next fiscal year. The rise yesterday, it added about $442 billion in market value. So we've been talking about different experts on our show. They're saying, why the dip? That's a question we posed to them. They said, you know what, it's not systemic. Maybe it could be interest rate related, but not an issue right now. And lastly, Ulta shares. They are taking a hit as well. They're down about 4%. Higher discounts, premium promotions, they really weighed on their margins. So that was the issue for Ulta.
All right, and we go back to the Treasury market. We were just talking about a little bit earlier. Obviously, the flattening of the curve, the story of the day, a 12 basis point increase on the 2-year yield, as a lot of traders now price in slightly greater odds that the Fed will start hiking rates this year. Your 30-year yield not going anywhere, and that's a testament maybe to the idea that the Fed will try to get inflation under control.
Hey, Romaine.
Yes, Tim.
How much chicken do you think the average U.S. resident eats per year?
How much? I don't know. 100 pounds.
Yes, 103 pounds.
Wow, look at that.
Wow, he did his homework, I guess.
There's no off position on the Genius.
But here's the important part. It's an increase from 5 years ago, a 6-pound increase from 5 years ago. Red meat consumption is declining. This is according to the Department of Agriculture. We're talking about this because Lisa getting this story on my radar today. It's in the Financial Times. It's about the cult of the $5 rotisserie chicken that is defying inflation, and it's at Costco.
How is that define inflation? I mean, I know $5 is
$4.99 for a rotisserie chicken?
No, that's not my point. My point is, how are they selling it at $5 and not like going out of business?
They do it all themselves. They have their own slaughterhouse in Nebraska. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like in the back of the store or something.
Well, maybe there's a store there, but yeah, it's bringing it all in house.
Yeah. Have you ever been to up to one of those places in Washington Heights, where you can get the live chicken and they do the deed for you right there?
No. Not on purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, not on purpose. What do you got for us?
The Pro Bowl. I know you're a big sports ball fan, Tim Stenovec.
Yeah.
But the Pro Bowl, it's been an institution since 1951 in the NFL. And earlier this week, they said they're getting rid of it. Nobody watches it, honestly.
Okay.
And the players don't care because they don't want to get hurt. So they don't really. It's basically like, the equivalent of like a backyard touch football game. But they finally decided, end of an era. I don't know if inflation had anything to do with that.
Yeah, they're losing money.
Emily, are you a sports fan?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
The Pro Bowl, they do have a Pro Bowl.
What does that mean?
For
Your
the
significant
NFL
other
cheerleaders
forces you to watch it?
As well, yeah. I follow the cheerleaders, and so the Pro Bowl was always a fun time to see all of the different cheerleaders all coming together.
And her college football. Emily, you follow your college football.
I do follow my college sports a lot.
Okay.
So I do need to graduate. I need to grow up.
Okay.
All right. Well, you got the weekend to do it. Guys, have a great weekend.
You too.
Maybe we'll see Romaine here on Monday. Maybe we'll see Emily